All right. How's everyone doing? This is Sean here. I'm gonna try to shoot one of my first little content videos here. Try to go over a couple of things with you guys, some movements for the hips. And for right now, just sit in Baddha Konasana. The feet can be relaxed. And I just want to go over a couple of concepts and ideas before we start to move our body around at all. Especially if you've been spending all day sitting. These can be really good movements, and even if you're very physically active, these can also be very good movements to help build some fundamental understanding in your hips, to start to pattern them a little bit better, to give them a little bit more strength. This can be a very powerful and potent thing to do, even though it's not necessarily a particularly hard thing to do. And I'm just going to go through some movements that I typically do in my practice. I want you to just focus on how it feels. I don't want you to be particularly concerned about these hard notions of alignment. They're not as hard as you might think they are. And we really just want to get in tune with what our body is telling us about the movement. And if we're too rigid on a particular idea or notion of alignment, we tend to overlook how we're feeling. And initially, that was sort of the approach of yoga, was to tune in and tap into the sensations and the feelings that were happening in our body. I do want you to be particularly attentive to the pelvic area and all the space below the navel as you move. And you're kind of pulling in and up on it. And then you're just allowing the body to move however it moves. Don't worry about how deep you take movement or anything like that. Okay? And then we're just going to take the legs out in front, take them wide, sit up nice and tall. Doesn't have to be super wide, right? And I'm just using the strength of my body and what it currently has. The movement within this pelvic space here, governed by the glutes, the psoas, the hip flexors, the hamstrings, the adductors, they really like to just move. So a lot of times we get into this habit of wanting to take these really deep stretches, and those can, of course, be beneficial, but sometimes just getting them to start to move around is perfect. Again, especially if we've been sitting all day. So just start to bring the feet in and just start to move side to side. Again, I'm not really worried so much about the alignment of things. I'm just feeling in my body, in my hips, side to side. And don't be worried if your butt starts to like wander off and you start migrating on your mat. Just back and forth. Good. And then maybe with straight legs, kind of turn when this back leg is straight. Turn. And get into a habit of really just allowing your body to find a natural rhythm here. Don't feel like you have to bring your hands involved. A lot of times I see people doing yoga poses that way. They get their hands a little too involved with the pose instead of just building strength off the legs, right? So I'm just trying to move in that way. Don't lie down. And again, turn this way. Same kind of movement. Feet are on the outside of the mat or close. You don't even need a mat for these kinds of things. It's back and forth. As much as you've got like space to move around, right? Back and forth. Good. And I'm just taking a few rotations, just trying some things out in my hips. And then I'm going to squeeze the legs in, hollowing the belly, drawing the knees up. Bring the forehead towards your knees. They can be together. They can be slightly apart. You might find a little more mobility that way. Kind of gets things out of the way. Release the right. Just squeeze for a little bit. And I'm being gentle. This is not about pressure. It's kind of about finding just where my body is right now. you'll notice by the end of this that your body will start to open up a little bit more, just embracing the mobility aspects. Back and forth, back and forth. And now just even and steady. Again, this navel point working down. So this is kind of a way to start to build range of motion and strength within the hip. And maybe take away the hands and just keep going and just be smooth. You don't have to start busting them out super fast. Just be nice and controlled and just feel the hips. Tick-tocking back and forth, no hands. Release the feet, hands on that pelvic area just for a moment. And remind yourself to draw this in and down. You might get a few distractions. My son's running around, but take the legs straight up in the air. Good, nice deep breath. So it's the same thing. Be very attentive to this little micro bend and try to activate the legs. For some of you, it might mean the legs are way over here. That's totally fine. Right, wherever they are. Then you'll release one leg down, grab behind the other leg, activate it, try to straighten it as much as possible. Just being careful that you're not bending the knee too much because we're trying to bring mobility into the hamstrings a little bit. And then switch. And you'll see that I'm grabbing behind the leg. It's just gentle pressure. I don't want to grab behind the knee joint because sometimes it promotes that little bend. Right? It can be close to the butt. It can even be above on the calf. I'm going to switch and switch. And I'm just gently bringing it in. You'll also notice that I'm bringing my head up. Back and forth. Back and forth. And you can already see that by keeping the leg active, I'm getting a little more mobility out of the joint. Good. Now I'm going to keep going. Keep going. All right, back and forth. It's not about jamming them out super fast. It's about feeling the joint, feeling the strength, kind of embracing some of the little fatigue signs that are coming up without overtaxing it. Come down. Let's just cycle these joints back and forth, right? It's giving us some nice circular movement in the joint. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave my left foot on the ground, bring my right leg up, and circle it around. Same idea. Try to keep this leg straight. If there's a little micro bend, that's fine, but you really want to be active in the quad. Bring it around, right? Towards the face. Bring it around. Notice and feel the hips. Are they staying on the ground? Or are they kind of rocking in this extreme way? Try to stabilize them a little bit and feel that navel point in the body. And just feel the joint circling around. And circling around. And then the other way, circling around. Circling around. So if you're doing this like on your own without the video, you start to kind of learn the sequence or you learn how to do these things and you can mix and match them a little bit, kind of make them your own, no big deal. It's just some ideas, some inspiration maybe. As you circle this leg around, you do it 8, 9, 10 times around there. Just feel that fatigue level in there and kind of gauge where it's going to be, right? Now we're going to turn onto the left side. We're going to be operating with the same leg, sitting with 90-degree bend in the knees. And I'm going to start to drag the toe up the shin towards the knee, opening this out to the side, promoting external rotation in the leg, getting the deep six to start to activate and engage, activate and engage, right? And be mindful, am I really drawing the knee as high up as I can draw it? And again, 10 to 20 is usually where I sit with this for me, but just be mindful of where you're at in your practice and whether or not you're over fatiguing some sensations. I'm going to come up here and tap it out. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, right? And then come back onto the back. We'll take big leg circles on the left. Active leg out and around. Active leg out and around. Active leg out and around. Right? I'm really trying to explore the sensations too. And each side of our body can be a little different. You might feel that one side is a little snaps, crackles. Maybe you feel your sacrum kind of sliding around in there and making some noises. It's not really anything to be overly concerned about, but it is something to take note of. If you have low back pain and stuff like that, it can start to help you understand why that's happening just by paying attention to these things, being mindful of them, being mindful again of like whether you're rocking, where is that movement coming from? If your body's trying to find it in other places, right? Let's circle it all the way around. If you have some impinged movement, your hamstrings are tight or your hip flexors are tight, you're going to notice your hips rock around a lot, trying to compensate in some way for the depth of motion. It's one of the reasons why it's not necessary to fight for that range of motion. Just feel what the hip is capable of, what it does. Be mindful of that. And about 10 times around, or whatever's in your practice. Again, a lot of this is just to kind of inspire you to feel some new movement maybe in your body. And we'll lay on the right side. Knees are bent about 90 degrees. And then bring it up and touch. Bring it up and touch as this knee is starting to work out to the side. Up and touch. Up and touch. Right? Just keep that motion happening. Feeling your breath, feeling the movement. After a few, I said 10 or 20 or so, wherever you're kind of feeling it, you're going to start to feel that sensation. Start to tap it out while the knee's really wide. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20. Good. Roll back onto the back. Give the legs a little side to side if you want. It's up to you. You can squeeze the legs into the body. You can start to feel, hopefully, that the range of motion, even just here, has changed. You can pull the legs in a little more. And then give yourself a rock, or maybe just take the legs up in the air and let them drift down as you do a little sit-up and come back into this position. You're going to play with just taking the leg out wide, right? Bringing this leg in, maybe adjusting into it, kind of feeling your weight, bringing it back out. Again, adjusting the weight, and just feel the strength that you do have in your hip. Be surprised. If you need your hands just to test things out, that's fine. But again, we want to try to do things just by shifting our weight, just so we can feel organically like what's happening in the body. Yeah. Maybe both legs. Shift into it. Right. Again, if you need this, give yourself a little boost. It's fine. Just feel. And then the feet can be as wide as they need to be that you can start to make that happen. Now we're just going to tick-tock it back and forth. Fold. And I'm not being super aggressive with my fold right now. I'm mostly just calmly engaged in a range of motion exercise. When I say calm, I want you tapping in to your breath, just like you kind of would in a yoga practice. And I don't want you being over concerned with the depth of the movement. I'm not grabbing my feet because I am just engaging the strength of my body, the strength of my hip, and that kind of thing. Yeah. And you'll notice that the range of motion will start to develop, okay? So let's bring ourselves up, try to do it without. Yeah, maybe stick this leg out here. We're going to go into a nice little lunge. I'll do one on the left. Come down, just kind of feel. And come up. I'm going to turn this leg inside, and I'm going to rotate this in and just kind of feel my leg, yeah, and come forward. So you notice that I'm kind of being a little disorganized in a sense. Like I'm really not trying to regiment my hip. I'm trying to see and feel what's going on. And this might take a little bit of work and understanding. And sometimes I think we tend to get a little rigid. So I'm going to bring this foot inside, and then I'm going to come down, and I'm just going to feel my hip, kind of almost like a half frog, and you really feel it in this side. And then you can even try to slide this knee out a little. Come back up. Let's transition to the other side. Come forward. Good. Deep breaths. I'm just feeling my body. Just want to see if there's anything in there I need to be made aware of. An opportunity to feel my hip joints. And anytime some of these exercises, maybe they get intense, it's okay. It's okay if they get intense. And we just want to feel if there's like any unnecessary pain in there. Well, unnecessary pain in the joints, especially the knees, but even in the hips, especially if we've had something done like surgery or something like that. We just have to be mindful of what we're feeling in there. All right, I'm going to come into frog pose for a moment. Take a few breaths in frog. Depending on where you're at with your frog, your toes can be together. They can start to work out to the side. Just bring it down. Again, this isn't really about some sort of specific alignment. I'm just trying to feel what your hips can do. And sometimes these simpler movements, I feel like, often get very, 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 very neglected. So I'm going to come into a downward dog, kind of with my legs a little wider than normal, and just walk my hands back and fold. Head up and fold. Head up, fold. I'm just being kind of loose in my body and slowly come on up. Good. We're going to get a little stronger. Take your feet out wide and drop into a nice little goddess pose. Just keeping the hips sort of stacked above, right? Or the body stacked above the hips. Then I'm going to turn and drop that knee. And I want you to notice I'm really trying not to bob up and down. I'm trying to keep this like a stable glide, pivoting just on my toes. And I'm just feeling again that mobility in my leg and my hip. All right. Nice deep breaths. Staying nice and low. Let's do 10 more, yeah? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, deep breaths. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Back to center. If you want, we can see if we can come all the way down and just kind of rock it out a little bit. And then bring yourself back to seated. Bring those feet back into butterfly. Bring them in and fold. Good. Bring it up. All right. So just relax the legs, shake them out a little bit. So it's kind of just prelims, a little bit of warm up for the hips, a little bit of just getting yourself going in your legs. It's not a heavy, hard experience necessarily. can be for some people's hips. So just be mindful of that. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching the video, kind of trying to post a couple of things, see how it goes. I'm not used to the whole posting thing in the video sense, and just give people some opportunity to start working on different elements of their practice and their body. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.